one Magneto tip or counter against every hero in Marvel Rivals Season 1. Let's dive into it. Winter Soldier's ultimate might be the only ability in the game that gets hard countered by Magneto's shield, and it's not in the way you think. Not only does the shield stop him from securing a kill on an enemy because it is a shield, but most importantly, the shield completely cleanses the mark that gives Winter Soldier a reset. So if Bucky places his ultimate on one of your teammates, simply putting a shield on them will effectively reset his ultimate, since it is impossible for him to get the reset even if the shield breaks. If Adam Warlock uses his ultimate and you ult immediately and throw your ult straight at him into the rest, it's gonna kill everyone. But a bounce heal or bond will save them, so the timing here is crucial, and in most cases you might be better off just charging it up. But in general, other than when trying to counter Adam's ultimate, you should avoid using the Meatball whenever Adam Warlock has his bond up, or you don't really deal him damage. If Black Panther uses his ultimate, since it is a line of sight or projectile ability, I'm not exactly sure which, then your big shield will actually completely block the Panther, which can save your entire team. Usually Black Panthers will use up all of their cooldowns before they use the ultimate, so you can expect them to use the ult right afterwards. But that being said, the animation is pretty slow, so you usually have time to react and look towards him if you're paying some attention. Countering Black Widow will be a bit weird since she is a very long range hero, but that doesn't mean you can't do anything if she is a problem. That being said, if you know she has her ultimate up and you need to run through a tight choke, expect her to be trying to use her ultimate to stop you from moving forward, and try blocking it by putting your shield up to eat it. You can also just try sniping her with your secondary. If Captain America dives your teammates, and this will happen a lot, then put a bubble on his priority target as he commits and wait for him to burn some of his cooldowns like his slam or maybe even his dash or something else before hitting him with your secondary fire. Ideally, seeing that he's jumping one of your teammates, this is giving you enough time to get a slightly better angle where you can push him behind cover, which stops him from getting healing or support from the rest of his team, and hopefully that'll be enough for you and your teammates to kill him. When Cloak and Dagger ults, then you should activate yours as well. Cloak and Dagger will stop 4 times per ult, turning them into very easy targets every single time, and depending on how much charge you get, either with your animation or by sucking up damage, then you'll be able to kill them at the varying breakpoints, or at the very least AD charge, or after getting a fully animated Meatball. I normally try to count each dash and aim for the third one, since if you throw it after the last dash, then they could potentially use their void ability if I take too long or mistime it, and they'll just kind of survive it anyways. That being said, if Cloak and Dagger tries to do this big play they might have seen on TikTok where they void up to go into the sky before activating their ultimate, just wait for them to hit the ground after the 4th dash. They won't have the void ability and it turns them into an easy kill. Keep in mind, most Cloaks know about the Magneto strat, so they'll usually try running away with the last 2 dashes, either out of your range or into cover. If you know there's a room or some type of cover that they're going to want to go towards, then try positioning yourself where you still have line of sight where they might want to run away. If you think that the enemy will give them a defensive bubble when using their ultimate, make sure that you ask your team to break it if it does come up, so you can kill the Cloak and Dagger yourself. If Doctor Strange ults your team and you for whatever reason failed at blocking it with your shield, then you can still save your team by putting a barrier on one of your teammates and then secondary firing Strange away from them as a combo. If you are lucky and they end up breaking this projected barrier, then you can get 2 pushes off, which lets you put Strange even far away. Keep in mind that if Strange has the Hulk team up from Season 1, then he will one-shot any squishes that are hit by the ultimate with a fully charged dark magic. So a good barrier or a shield here and just getting some distance is vital. If you're close enough, you can also just hold your shield out, or if it is a really important fight, you can use your ult to stop the rest of the enemies from lining up free shots as well. Again, if they have a Hulk dark magic, it won't really matter. When playing against a Groot, then you need to count Groot ults and make it your mission to counter them. If they have a Groot ult coming up, position yourself close to him or in front of him, and if he starts running up or he starts showing signs of ulting, usually that would mean that he stops hitting the same way, maybe he starts being a little bit extra aggressive, maybe he kind of zeroes in and starts running forwards or trying to get a bit of an off angle, then you want to put your shield up to try and eat it. Because if you do so, you just saved your entire team from losing a team fight. Actually reacting to the Groot ult is going to be hard because the ultimate comes out instantly without any proper animation or sound cue, but if you can time your shield right, then you will eat the ultimate and again, completely save your team. If Hawkeye uses his ultimate, then you should look around at your teammates. If someone has a lot of after images that Hawkeye can hit, then they do not have a lot of time. Either try putting a shield up to break the line of sight and remove the after images, or project that barrier on top of them, as this also achieves the same results. You could also ult him if you are really desperate. If Hela ults, make sure to look around and see who he starts hitting. Odds are all your teammates will be running to cover, but she will throw 2 balls at the easiest and the closest ones. If you can shield a target at any point after the first ball hits, then they might just survive the ultimate, and by the time their shield has gone down or they are in cover, hopefully the rest of your teammates have gotten into cover or out of harm's way as well. If Hulk jumps into your backline, wait for him to start jumping out again to hit your right click either when he jumps or right before, so when you expect him to jump. And hitting this is paramount, because if he hasn't used his jump yet, he will lose all the charge on the jump, which forces him to recharge, which makes him practically stationary. As for Iron Fist, just putting a shield on Iron Fist's target and booping him away with your secondary is surprisingly effective and usually gives you the opening your teammates might need. As for Iron Man, if you react fast enough, then you can boop Iron Man with your secondary fire mid-ultimate to throw his aim off. If this doesn't work, then you can always use your ultimate at any point before his ult lands to soak it up. It instantly gets 80 charge from the ball, which is enough to one-shot the Iron Man or any squishy if you want to. As for Jeff, assuming you can't get out, if Jeff only eats you, you can just self-shield. If he eats you and a teammate, depending on the teammate, you can either self-shield or shield them if they have a higher chance of killing Jeff. And if Jeff ults eat a ton of people on your team, you can always Magneto ult as you become unstunnable and throw it at that stupid fish, and if everything fails, just push him off the map when he spits your teammates out to even the odds. As for Loki, always focus on breaking the runes in your normal fight. 2 primaries or 1 primary and secondary fire will be enough to break 1 rune. Avoid ulting until you know that runes are on cooldown, or if Loki is using his ultimate, since he obviously won't be able to use the runes himself. As for Luna Snow, if you're using your ultimate to counter Luna Snow's ultimate, then you need to try to make your Meatball charge up to the maximum of the animation. This gives you a little bit of a bigger explosive radius, which is an almost must-have if you want to hit a floating enemy that moves at 200 miles per hour. You should also ask your team to deal some chip damage to her bonus health so you actually can one-shot her without too much additional charge. Magik is heavily focused on using specific combos to hit specific breakpoints. If one part of those combos won't hit, then she will not land a kill. So if she dives one of your teammates, just putting a bubble on them and or hitting them with a secondary fire when she goes in will stop her from getting a full combo and probably even a kill in. It's as simple as that. When you're playing against another Magneto, then you should know how he thinks and you should know how he wants to use his ultimate. Your shield is your best bet to saving your teammates, but keep in mind it does not have enough duration for the entire Meatball animation. If you have enough charge, then you could activate the shield at about the halfway mark, that's after 2 seconds of their Meatball animation, to hold your shield up for the entire remaining duration. Obviously that doesn't take the time between him throwing the Meatball and it actually reaching you into consideration, so give it a little bit of extra time before you put the shield up just to be safe. If you have really fast reflexes, you can also just react as soon as he throws it. The marker on the Meatball is very useful here as well, since in addition to the timer, it also grows with damage, and the icon on the ball shows just how charged up it is. If the ball is red, then it will one-shot a squishy even without a full animation. It being red means it has about 80 charge. Make sure to look around and make sure you don't have a juicy squishy that he can snipe, in which case just put a barrier on them if you can once he throws the ultimate. If Mantis uses her ultimate, then you can just throw your ultimate at her. Assuming she doesn't get peeled, then she doesn't have that good of an escape. Just keep in mind she gets a little bit of bonus shields that either need to be dealt with or you need to get a little bit extra charge to pull it off. As for Moon Knight, try to keep an idea of when Moon Knight has his ult. If he does get it, then the usual tell is that he's gonna double jump up or use the zipline to jump up and get a better view before using it. If you have your barrier up, pay close attention to where the ultimate is placed and try to bubble anyone who's caught in the middle, especially anyone who might get sucked in by an onk, with the priority being your supports or heroes with bad escape abilities. If you have the charge, you could also attempt to push Moon Knight away when he goes for this double jump, and that might be able to throw off his aim and make him miss his ultimate. You can block the effect of Namor's ultimate by holding up your shield or putting a bubble that blocks the line of sight between the middle of his ultimate and the rest of your teammates. If Namor combines with something like a Groot, then make sure you put your bubble on one teammate near the middle and then holding the shield up to try to cut as much line of sight from the middle of the damage zone as possible to save as many of your teammates as you can. If you do this right and you get really lucky, you could save everyone. If you know where Penny Parker's spider nest is, then you really need to destroy it. If you know where it is but you can't get a direct line of sight, then throwing your primary around the corner and having your explosion deal a little bit of chip damage at a time is a good way to go about it, just so somebody deals with it. If Psylocke ults, make sure to put your bubble on one of the targets inside of that ultimate. If necessary, then you should put it on a target that already doesn't have too much health or a squishy with about half of their health remaining. But if everyone is full health, then you will get the most value from bubbling someone who hasn't been hit yet, as the ultimate always targets who was hit last first. Additionally, if you are inside of the ultimate, you could hold your shield up against the middle of the ultimate to block one hit. The shield also counts as an additional thing that can be hit. You can cut off Rocket Raccoon's effective healing by using your big shield against his balls while they're floating around, the yellow balls. This eats them and stops them from healing his teammates. Additionally, you can destroy his BRB with 2 primary hits or 1 primary fire and then 1 secondary fire. If Scarlet Witch ults, then you can just throw her back into cover in the last moment with a good secondary fire. At the same time, placing a bubble on any critical teammates and putting your shield up will obviously make a big difference if anyone didn't get to cover in time. If Spider-Man marks an enemy, then wait for him to start engaging them with a dash or web swing before putting a bubble on them to save them from a one-shot or uppercut. If he does uppercut a teammate, then you can also hit him with a secondary fire to knock him out of course and potentially save him from follow-up damage. As for Squirrel Girl, make sure to break the Squirrel Girl stampede as soon as you can. 2 direct hits with your primary or a direct hit and a fully charged secondary against the big squirrel, it does have a bit of a wonky hitbox, is enough to take it down immediately and stop your team from getting blasted. Star-Lord's ultimate can temporarily be countered with your ultimate and you positioning yourself in between Star-Lord and your own teammates, but keep in mind that it only protects from his ultimate for up to 4 seconds, whereas his ultimate is twice as long. Not to mention that if he and his team sinks shots into your Meatball, then it will go down a lot faster than after 4 seconds. If you choose to ultimate against Star-Lord, then you need to make sure to throw your ultimate at his team or go for the trick shot on him midair. Just make sure that he already has used his 2 dashes before you throw it, or you're just gonna end up looking silly. It helps a lot if Star-Lord is hovering near a wall or something, so if you do miss, you'll still kill him with the splash damage. Storm's ultimate is a line of sight ability, meaning she needs line of sight from the middle of her ultimate to deal damage to anyone inside of it. Your barriers and shields break this, so bubbling one teammate who might be out of position when her ultimate lands and then holding your shield up for the ones behind you can stop her from destroying your squishies. Remember, since it keeps progressively taking damage, if your teammates are on the other side of the ultimate, then you could walk forward and put your shield through the storm to help on the other side at the risk of taking some damage yourself. If you're using your ultimate against a Punisher, or Punisher starts an ultimate
Judge, Jury, Executioner!
After you have popped yours, keep in mind that he can start firing before he's done saying jury, so before the voice line actually finishes. With that in mind, assuming you shoot straight into your ultimate as soon as you can, then you should expect to throw it before he even finishes his entire voice line. You could ideally throw the ultimate into Punisher, but hitting some other squishies works just as well. Force ultimate, like many others, is a line of sight ultimate. If he uses his ultimate on you or your team, just place yourself between the middle of the ultimate and your teammates and raise the shield when he slams down after 1.5 seconds to stop them from taking damage. Just keep in mind that he can move around while charging his ultimate, and if you don't pay attention, then he can just fly over your head and deal damage to everyone anyways. As for Venom, he will usually slam in, use his bonus health, and then finally swing out when he takes too much damage and needs to get out. If you can time it right and hit him with your secondary fire when he's just starting to swing out, then you could destroy his momentum, put his escape on cooldown, and get a free kill. This has a really tight window that requires prediction, but the timing is usually sometime after he's already gotten low health, used his bonus health, and then starts to turn around away from your team. If you're playing against a Wolverine, then you need to make sure to keep your shield available as much as you can. Wolverine will be trying to yoink you or a teammate, and you need to be ready to shield that target. If you get yoinked and take a lot of damage, then you should start with using your self bubble, but if you don't take too much damage and you can survive Wolverine's attack with some help from your team, then you can also start with your own shield and then use the barrier if needed for the last part before you get back to your team. Mr. Fantastic's ultimate can bounce up to 6 times as long as it gets in contact with an enemy, and if he keeps hitting the same enemy without them getting any heals or shields, he will kill them in 4 to 5 bounces. If he singles out one of your teammates with his ultimate, then you need to make sure to apply a barrier to them. Barriers obviously save them from damage, but most importantly, it stops him from getting a reset and another bounce. That also means that if you know that he has been bouncing at least 3 times and you see Mr. Fantastic going for one of your teammates for a bounce, then you could also bubble them just to stop the bounce streak. As for Invisible Woman, this will probably be your secondary target to snipe with your Meatball if Cloak and Dagger already has used theirs, especially if we're talking a free support meta. If Sue pops her ultimate, then she will usually immediately run into it. Try to pay attention to her whereabouts to see if she goes for a double jump, and if she does, then she won't have an escape, and that turns her into an easy kill. If you never see her using the double jump, then you have to think twice before throwing it, because she can easily dodge your Meatball with it. Additionally, if you are inside of her ultimate and she's on the edge of it or just about outside of it, then you can also use your secondary fire to boop her away from the ultimate and then hopefully kill her with some help from your teammates. Killing Invisible Woman instantly removes the ultimate, so the value here can be massive. But yeah, that was it. I hope this helps, and make sure you guys subscribe to catch the tips for Season 2. Check out the video on the screen if you want to get even better at Marvel Rivals, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.